Hi, I'm Manny Khoshbin. I went from selling nuts and being homeless to being a multimillionaire in real estate and exotic cars, and I'm one of the passionate few. I think the interview was fantastic. Again, it was my first podcast, but I really enjoyed Omar and the questions he brought up, and really took me back in the early years of my business and success, and it was kind of refreshing.
Success is hard, but it is doable.
Get out of your comfort zone,
Wow.
Challenge yourself.
Wow.
Unless you challenge yourself, you don't grow.
Welcome to this episode of the Passionate Few podcast today. It's your host, Omar, and today we have a very special episode as we have an exclusive interview with Manny Khoshbin. Known as the King of Real Estate, we get to hear how Manny came to this country as a young teenager from Iran seeking to escape the war and actually lived in his car inside of a parking lot with multiple family members and never lost sight of his vision to make his American dream happen. And of course, to date, Manny has acquired and been involved with real estate transactions nearing almost $1 billion. And of course, we shared his entire story of literally going from that rock bottom situation, knocking on doors, selling his product, buying a gas station, and losing it all many times over, but ultimately proving that he would never give up. Manny talks all about manifestation, working hard, and if you want to be inspired or motivated to make your dreams a reality, you'll want to pay attention to the very end of this interview, because Manny's story is proof that if he could do it, you could definitely do it as well. So with no further ado, I want to encourage you guys to sit back, relax, enjoy this powerful interview with none other than the King of Real Estate himself, Manny Khoshbin. Enjoy. Thanks for being on the show today, Manny.
My pleasure.
Absolutely, my man. So let's get right into it. A lot of people might see you on social media. They see the massive multi-million-dollar real estate empire you built. But a lot of people don't know that you came from kind of humble beginnings, right?
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit, before you built this multi-million-dollar empire, where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? And sort of where did you start? Where did the ball start rolling for you as a kid?
Oh, I'm from Iran, and in 1984, right before I turned 14, my dad decided to flee Iran to basically save my life, because at 14 they drafted you to army. And my dad, having 6 brothers, 4 being crippled or dead by now from the injuries from the war, and I was his favorite son. He didn't want that to happen to me. So we fled two weeks before my 14th birthday with $2,000. We went to Turkey, got a visa, came to US. He had a friend in Costa Mesa that had a gas station and had promised him a job, pumping full service gas. So we took a taxi from LAX to their house. And I guess he hadn't communicated to his wife that there is 6 people moving in.
You got a surprise at the door.
Yeah, that didn't go too well. The second night we were there, we could hear them fighting in the kitchen, and then he walked into the room. He says, "I'm sorry, you guys have to, leave, and my wife's having a problem, blah, blah, blah." So we moved to a motel. After a week in motel, my dad realized we were running out of money. So he called his buddy. He goes, "This is not right. I brought my, kids over here, counting on you." And my sister was 6 months old at the time, so it was pretty, stressful, for my parents.
Sure, yeah.
And so his buddy says, "Hey, I can sell you one of my cars," because he used to sell cars at his gas station a lot. "I can sell you one of the cars, and at least you have something, to drive around or live in." So we went over there, picked up a Datsun station wagon, and that became our house for a few months.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how old were you at this time? This is 14?
I was 14. Yeah.
So you're living in a Datsun car?
Yep, 6 of us. Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't remember. Maybe it was a few weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you go through trauma in life, your subconscious blocks it. When certain things are painful.
It waters it down a little bit in the memory.
Yeah, and your memory gets a little foggy, not because you don't want to remember it, because
Yeah.
it's painful.
Yeah.
But nevertheless,
What was the attitude like in the car? Was it like, oh shit, we're in a rough situation? Or was it kind of like positive, upbeat? Was it like a supportive? Do you remember the sort of energy, or was it tension?
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like in the car?
Definitely tense, tense and stressful and anxiety. Obviously, when you don't speak any English, you come to this country with no resources. And my dad did speak English because he was, educated back in America at some point for his degree. He was a senior cost accountant for oil company, and but none of us speak any English, and you feel helpless,
Yeah.
And
Were you picked
so
on in
kind of
school?
desperate. Oh yeah, yeah. At school wasn't fun either. The first 2 years I had a very rough time. I had 3 hours of ESL classes.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't speak any English, and so I got picked all the time. I was a very skinny boy.
Wow.
Short, skinny boy, and I think that's one of the reasons I started weightlifting early on. Ever since I was 14 and a half, I started lifting. I bought my first 2 dumbbells from Swap Meet for $1.
Yeah.
50 cents each, and I wish I had kept them. But those were my best friends.
And that's how you built your confidence, right?
Yeah, yeah. To me, exercise is like probably the most influential thing in my life, and you probably get that from a lot of entrepreneurs,
Right,
successful
absolutely.
entrepreneurs. Most of them work out, they have good physique, and you build your body first, and then you build your mind, your mindset. And as you see results, improvement in your muscles, your body, your mind starts getting more confident as well.
And starts translating into business, life, other areas, communication. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's been a very big key for me, and to this day, I still work out 3 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
you got to, man. You never quit.
I love it. So let's go back. So you're living in the car, 14, times are tough. How do you guys eventually get out of the car?
Yeah. So my dad used to get the newspaper every day, look for job opportunities. Finally landed an accounting job because that's what his education was, in accounting. And he got the first job, and then as soon as his 2 weeks goes by, he gets his first paycheck. We go to an apartment complex, and
Wow.
he's able to secure an apartment.
How happy were you at the time? How happy was the family when you guys moved into the
Oh, we were
apartment?
super excited. Yeah, because it's like a fresh beginning. And but I always had that anxiety of everyone's going through hell because of me. So I've always had this guilt, on my shoulders that I have to do something big. I got to do something to pay back my parents. And
How old
my
were you when
family.
that started?
Oh, 14.
Really?
It was
So right away?
immediately, Yeah.
Did all your siblings feel the same, or you especially?
Mostly me. Yeah.
Why is
they-
that, you think?
Well, because my dad left. Everyone suffered because of me. So I kind of I was desperate to succeed.
Yeah.
To kind of give everybody comfort, and and so since I was 14, I was always on the lookout. What can I do to help my parents? And the first idea that came to my mind was when I was taking out the trash. I was 14 years old from our apartment, and I see people left dining chairs out, toaster and what have you. I'm like, why are people leaving this out? I mean, the chair is in good shape. The
I could sit in it.
dining table's in good shape. So I'm like, first it didn't dawn on me that they're throwing it away. I thought somebody's moving in, right?
They just left it on the curb or something. Yeah.
But after a few hours, I came back and it was still there. So I told my brother, say, hey, Mozzie, come on down. So we moved it to our patio.
Yeah.
And then we started collecting stuff that people they wanted to throw out. And then we lived across from Orange Coast College, which on weekends it was a swap meet, And we used to go to swap meet all the time with my mom to buy stuff for kitchen and what have you. And so I told my brother, I said, let's go sell the stuff we collected. It's free. So that was my first job. At 14 for 2 years, we did that, and it was free money. I think we paid like $10 a spot for the swap meet, and then everything else we sold was all profit.
Yeah.
So that's how I was helping my dad. And then when I reached 16, I was legally able to work. So my first job was Kmart.
Kmart.
Yeah, Kmart.
Wow.
Attention, Kmart shoppers.
So to think now you're living in a $35 million estate. We're around, multi-million dollars worth of cars. It all started at Kmart.
Kmart.
Officially.
Kmart was $3.15 an hour.
No way.
Yeah, 1986. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was a regular clerk. I had to collect shopping carts, clean the stockroom, mop the floors, clean toilets. So basically all the dirty work, nobody wants to do.
For $3.15 an hour.
Yeah, an hour. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I was like making $500-600 a month. That was my salary.
You're probably excited at the time though, right?
Oh yeah, are you kidding? Because back then they paid cash too. It wasn't paycheck.
Oh, wow.
So they used to put, when you go to get your paycheck every Friday, everybody lined up at the HR office, human resources, and They put cash with the coins, everything, the change in the envelope. They seal and give it to you.
Yeah.
So I used to take $100 out of it. My paycheck was like 120, $130 a week with overtime or what have you. And then I used to take $100, put it in a new envelope, seal it, put it under my mattress, literally under my mattress. So I did that for 1 year, and I was able to raise $5,000. And then I went and bought my car at auction. So even back then, I wanted to get deals, at age 17.
Where did you learn that discipline? Was your family into the discipline, or you just sort of picked it up on your own?
Well, my grandpa had a grocery store in Iran, so I used to go to his grocery store all the time, and I saw him wheeling with people. Maybe that kind of, I don't know, inked in my brain.
Yeah.
But,
What car was it? Your first car, the $5,000?
Oh, it was a 1983 Honda Accord and burgundy. So at 17, my car was better than my dad's. That's when I knew I'm going to be somebody.
Yeah. So then from there, you start building the confidence of like, okay, I'm starting to make my own money. I know how to save. Where does the seed get planted where you start, I think, selling nuts, right? Was that your first entrepreneurial endeavor from there?
Yeah. Well, I always knew like anything I'm doing early on is a stepping stone. With that mentality, I had a much bigger picture in my mind. I wanted to be a multimillionaire. I wanted to own a bunch of exotic cars, a big mansion. As a matter of fact, at age 15 or 16, I have to go find a picture. I drew a mansion with some palm trees in front of it and 2 Mercedes. Back then, I didn't know what the Ferrari is or Lamborghini.
Yeah.
I knew Mercedes, right?
Yeah.
So I drew 2 convertible Mercedes with palm trees. And I have to find that. It's somewhere in my attic, probably.
That is unbelievable.
But so, you envision your dream where you want to be, and then your subconscious will take over. If you really put the effort, your subconscious will do the rest.
It will figure out the how.
Yeah, it's kind of like pouring water on top of the mountain. It'll find a way to get down, right? It may go straight, it may go turn left.
But you got to pour the water.
You got to pour the water.
And most people don't, huh?
And to pour the water, you got to climb the mountain.
I love that. So let me ask you this. Where did that start? I mean, I know you said at 14 you always wanted to achieve, but where did it go from just wanting to achieve to wanting to be a multimillionaire with palm trees and Mercedes and a mansion?
Good question. Yeah. So when I was getting my paycheck, I realized it took me a year to buy a car. At this rate, I'm not going to own this mansion.
It's going to take you 10 years to buy a palm tree, yeah.
But I was always disciplined. I was always early to work. I never called in sick. Even if I didn't feel good, I showed up. So I was employee of the month 3 times in first 6 months.
Wow.
At Kmart. After 8 months, I was promoted to assistant manager of sporting goods, which is huge, going from mopping floors to assistant manager of sporting goods.
Yeah, in only a few months. Yeah.
Yeah, and they give me a raise. It was almost double my paycheck, but still, I realized, okay, this is not a place, I'm going to build my dreams, right? Yeah. So it's just like going through the, college or school, getting street smart, And so I was always looking at the newspaper, looking for opportunities. And I came across this ad, is word Worldwide Industries, it was the name of the WWI. And it said, earn $1,000 a week. I'm like, wow, that's, a lot more than I'm making. And I called them up. They said, yeah, it's a multi-level marketing. We sell knife sets, nuts, this, that. So I went for an interview. They hired me. And I worked there for 3 years selling nuts.
How old were you at that time?
I was 17 and a half.
So 17 to age 20?
Yeah, I worked for Kmart for 1.5 years, and then I went to WWI selling nuts. After 3 months, I was their top salesman.
Really?
Yeah.
What was your strategy?
A strategy? Nothing. I was friendly with everybody,
So you would knock on doors, or what was?
It was businesses. So we would take a basket of nuts and go to like auto dealerships, and you got all these secretaries sitting around, salespeople. They got nothing to do. They're waiting for customers to come in so they can pound on it. So they love jelly beans, toffees, jujubes, pistachios, cashews, almonds.
To kill time, kind of.
Yeah, everybody likes that. So I would walk in there and say, hey, I got these fresh, nuts, and chit chat with them. Hey, have you tried these? I'll make you a deal. If you buy 3, I'll give it to you for $10. They're usually $5 each. So I give you $5 off. And then I would, people would gather, as soon as I walk in, they'll check, hey, what do you have? Yeah, I'll take 3 of this. Or next time I sell $150, in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Walk out until the general manager would show up. Yeah, it was rough though. One time I was at, I think it was Pomona Auto Center. It was at a Toyota dealership, if I'm not mistaken. The GM was a real asshole. He knew every week I come, And then he caught me right when I walked in front of everybody, and he chewed my butt.
Yeah.
Get out of there, you camel rider, you fucking...
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, back then, discrimination was obviously much more than now. But, so anyhow, so after 3 months, I was top salesman. I was making like, $2,000 or $3,000 a month. And I went to Costco with my dad to do some grocery shopping. And then while I was passing by, I saw the nut aisle. I'm like, hey, I did quick math. I'm like, they're selling 5 pounds of pistachio for, $5, and WWI is selling it to me for $10, So I'm like, that's double the cost. So I said, why don't I buy it myself? I already have all my roots and customers,
And make a bigger profit.
Yeah. So I looked into Yellow Pages looking for polyester bags and a sealer. So I found it. I bought it. I think I spent $180 on the sealant and some polyester bags. And then I used my dad's PC to print the labels. And I started my own business. I was 18. I got a small little office in Stanton. My dad had to co-sign because the landlord wouldn't give it to me.
Yeah.
And then I I had my customers already. So I went to Costco with my dad. I bought a pallet of nuts, and then start bagging them in an 8-inch polyester bag, and I was off to races. And then I start
It's incredible.
hiring people. I used to go to phone booths and put these phone numbers you can
Want to sell nuts?
take off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say nuts. I was earn $1,000 a week at your own pace.
The same thing that got you.
Yeah. Same exact ad.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you this. At what stage do you start going, like I could scale this? Like just when you started making enough to like bring people on? Like, did you think this was the play, or were you sort of living out what you said about like you kind of knew that everything was a stepping stone? You didn't know how it was going to unfold, but you just know if you keep going.
Well,
somehow
at
things will
that
grow.
time, the owner of WWI was driving a brand new Corvette, and he was in his sharp suits, and he had like 300 people working for him. So
Like,
I
I
saw
want
the
that.
bigger picture. I'm like, this guy's got to be a multimillionaire. So to me, that was my like ticket, right, to financial freedom. But destiny takes you different paths in life, right? And you don't know. It's like a book. It's writing as you go along, right?
Yeah.
So I was selling nuts one time at waiting for my burger. I pitched everybody sitting in the restaurant to sell nuts while I'm waiting for my burger. And this one guy bought 3 bags. And next morning, 7 a.m., I show up and he's at my door. He was a health inspector for Orange County.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he goes, hey, I don't see your permit on file. I'm like, what permit? He goes, you're selling food product. You're packaging food you can sell without permit. I didn't know.
Yeah.
That in this country, every time we repackage food for resale purposes, you have to have,
Legal,
facility and So he gave me a big booklet. He goes, this is all the requirement. So I reviewed it with my dad that night, and I'm like, forget it. I mean, this facility doesn't even qualify.
Yeah.
So I had to shut it down, and that was a sad day. But
Wow.
yeah,
And you're 21 at that time?
no, I was 19. I was only in business for less than a year.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I called one of these customers I used to buy a lot of nuts from. His name was Ruben. He was a manager of Winston Tires in Montebello. Because I used to drive far. I used to go from San Diego all the way to Montebello selling nuts.
Which is interesting because we're here in Orange County, so you grew up around this area.
Yep.
And it's awesome to see that you came full circle from having nothing to having a whole lot of stuff all in the same area.
Yep.
So it must be nostalgic for you when you drive the streets and remember when you were broke.
Oh my
and
God,
things
it's
are different now
crazy.
when you're driving
Yeah.
in multi-million-dollar cars. What does that feel like for you?
It feels weird. It feels crazy. Like Estate Brothers on Newport Boulevard in Costa Mesa. That's where we used to park our Datsun, and used to live in it. And we used to go buy bananas because that was the cheapest source of food.
Yeah.
And sometimes I drive by there. I'm in my Bugatti or my Rolls Royce. I'm like, fuck, still there, but I'm not there anymore.
Oh man, that's
you gotta
amazing.
keep moving.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So after that, I called Ruben at Winston Tires. I said, Ruben, I had to close my business down because of health department, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for a job. I don't know what else to do. I have some money. And he says, well, give me a call. If you like, I can put in a good word for you with Sam Winston, blah, blah, blah. So that night I went home. I told my dad, I'm thinking to go work for a tire company, because I have some money saved, but I don't know what to do with it, right? I had like $20,000 saved. And then my dad says, oh, my friend was telling me we can buy a gas station, with SBA loan. So he called his friend. He came over that same night. His name was Art. And he's like, yeah, with $20,000, I can for sure find you a gas station. And right now, gas stations are going through conversion to going digital
Right.
from mechanical pumps. And everyone that the oil companies would pick to do the conversion, they would like double in value, right? So it goes, I think there is one off of Crenshaw on 405, it was a mobile gas station. It goes, that one's on the list to get converted and the owner doesn't know yet. So I can probably talk to the owner, make a deal.
Make a deal, yeah.
So he did. A week later, we're in escrow for 160 grand. So now
just
all of a
like
sudden
that.
I'm buying a mobile gas station. So I had to go to Rancho Cucamonga to Mobile for 2 weeks courses to become a mobile dealer. It was cost $3,500. Had to measure the tanks, run the snack shop, all this stuff.
Were you fearful at the time, or were you just kind of like in F
No.
mode? Go.
No, there's no fear, man. I was so hungry for success.
Yeah.
You just show me the way. Just show me what's my best path, man. I'll run like there's no tomorrow.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Were
but
you ever
you're-
fearful, or was that like a reoccurring theme in your upbringing?
Fear is, always with you. I don't know anyone that, honestly can say they don't have fear in life, You have fear of something, or another. But if your motivation exceeds fear, you're always going to overcome it, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And so we're in escrow. I spent $3,500. I became a mobile dealer, which I still have my plaque from mobile company, and he hired a loan officer to do my SBA loan. And unfortunately, sadly, that guy turned out to be a con, and he ended up going to jail too. He conned a lot of people.
So he conned you?
He took my money for loan processing, appraisal, all this stuff. He didn't do anyway. He took basically a big loan fee. And 3 months later, we're thinking we're going to get loan docs. We're going to close on this gas station. Nothing happens. The guy's not responding. And by then, the Korean lady that owned the gas station got kind of a wind that this thing's going to convert.
Right.
And she said, I'm not interested to sell. And she wouldn't do an extension.
Oh,
so I lost all my 20 grand.
Which was at the time your life savings.
Everything. To me, it was like millions of dollars,
Yeah. Shit.
And
So what happens that night? You realize it's a scam.
so I'm like 19 years old. I'm like, fuck, what am I? So I called Ruben. I said, okay, that didn't work. I need a job. So he got me a job. I worked for Winston Tire for about a year. And
How hard did you take the loss of the money, or did you just kind of get back up?
It was depressing. That was my first basically near bankruptcy.
Right.
It's super depressing because that was hard cash and hard earned money. I made that money being discriminated, cost that.
Yeah.
So it was like it was pretty hard. But I told myself, look, maybe it wasn't meant to be. You have to believe in that. That if you put the effort, you put everything, good intentions, you put the hardest you can, and it doesn't work out, there's a reason for it, right? There is something better waiting for you.
I love that.
That's what I think.
And for the audience listening, I think it's important for them to internalize that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is too that sometimes like when things don't work out, instead of like the the natural stuff like, oh shit, oh man, it's fine. Like, okay, what's good about this? Or
Yeah.
maybe there's a long-term blessing here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's been proven to me over and over and over.
And at bigger and bigger and bigger levels, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's, now you're at the stage where you're dealing with tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. I'm sure there's been times where you've lost millions of dollars at a time, no?
Yes. Yeah, I lost, my biggest one was $5 million on a high rise. I lost when I lost single tenant, which was Boeing,
Yeah.
Boeing subsidiary was my tenant.
Yeah.
In Clear Lake, NASA.
How do you sleep on nights when you lose $5 million?
A nice cigar. Hey, you gotta celebrate your failures and your success.
Yeah, I love that.
Because there is a lesson to be learned in everything. When you have a great success, a good exit, you sell a company or whatever it may be, you celebrate because it's a good milestone in life. And then when you lose, something bad happens, hey, it's an expensive lesson learned. You still celebrate it.
Yeah.
Because if you take it with a negative notation, that's just gonna keep eating you inside, and it's gonna limit your upside.
And it's going to reinforce the negativity.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay. So from there, you start doing well. And like, where is it where after the loss of the money, where you start to sort of build yourself back up? I know you get the job at the Winston Tire.
Yeah, so I got the job at Winston Tire. I worked there for about a year. I got promoted to manager. And of course, the commute was a lot. We used to live in Garden Grove, and I used to drive all the way to Montebello. And then as I surround myself with more successful people, and that's a big secret to success as well. You're a product of your environment. So always, find new friends that are older and more successful than you. So I was like a sponge, learning from people around me, right?
Yeah.
So I met this guy, and he drove a convertible Porsche, and
So you're like, I like you.
suit. I'm like, wow, I want to have a Porsche.
Yeah.
So I said, what do you do? He goes, I own a mortgage company. And I'm like, oh, okay, what do you do? Loans and real estate? And I'm like, okay, cool. So I told him I work for once entire company, but he liked my, my attitude, my motivation, my energy. He goes, hey, why don't you come, do loan processing for me? I said, all right. So I got my real estate license. I worked for him for 5 or 6 months. And then I realized how much money you can make in loans because I was processing them. I see how much checks, commissions you were getting on each loan. And then I tried to open my own mortgage company. I realized you need a broker. So I met another guy through the circle that he was a broker, but he was not as motivated.
Yeah.
Because he rich parents,
Yeah.
But he was a broker. So I'm like, hey, Mark, why don't we open a mortgage company? I don't have a broker license, but you do. We'll go 50-50. He's like, okay. So, but I was the go-getter one, mostly.
And how old are you at this time? Early 20s?
I was 21, I think, at this point. So I was 21. 92 is 21. 92 is when I got my license.
And your goal the whole time is like millions. I got to become a millionaire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
From day
that
one.
mansion, palm trees, and those convertible cars. That's
wow. And
always been.
Would you say your home now is very similar to what you drew back
Very
then?
much. I have 11 palm trees in the house. King palm trees. It's double lot, huge curb appeal. And when you park those cars in front, it's just like that picture.
I love that.
Yeah.
Then let me ask you this. Were you writing down affirmations? I mean, were you visualizing yourself? Were you writing down the goals? I mean, what did you do to ingrain it? Or was it just a mental thing that you
It was
always
all
fixated
mental.
on?
I mean, although, the past 10 years, I've been writing my goals every day, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. My goals, I actually have a spreadsheet I made 25 years ago of how much I'm going to be worth by the time I'm 67. I put all these numbers in there. If I make 10% a year, but this one house I have, I sell it, I buy 2 houses, and I use this formula, and it was really interesting. It's called the aftermath. And then there's another one, it's called actual aftermath. And I haven't done it for a few years, but for every year on January, I used to compare my actual aftermath with the aftermath I did many years ago to see if I'm on the right track.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible.
So, you have to keep your mind to stay on the right path. You have to constantly write your goals. You have to have some kind of
Guide,
parameter
GPS.
guide. Exactly.
Yeah, because if you want to play $1 million level, it's different than a $10 million level or a $50 million level. And if your brain isn't tuned to that, it doesn't know how to take the next step actions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what would be your best advice to people watching this who might, see all the, material, amazing possessions that you possess and the huge impact you've had in real estate, who probably don't realize it took you almost, 3 decades, 30 years to get here? What would be your best advice to them on how important it is to, write down goals, ingrain it in your mind, get crystal clear? I mean, what advice would you give people out there looking for answers?
Well, I would say, life is like a road trip, right? First, you got to find your destination. Where do you want to go in life? What makes you happy? To some people, this is not happiness. To some people, they want to, be a spiritual, travel, have just enough money where they don't have to worry about their rent, but they want to be free, a spirited travel, and they're happy. Trust me, they don't want it. You give them a free Bugatti, they don't want it. So everybody's different.
Yeah.
For me, all the material things, it was out of desperation because this to me was signaling that, I don't have financial difficulties anymore. And that was the big difficulty we had when we got here. But now falling in love with, cars, and I have passion for them. I appreciate it. But the most important thing, find your destination, find out where you want to be in life, whether it's becoming a yoga teacher that makes you super happy, or you want to have your own company, or you want to have a massive amount of money where you can do a lot of charity events, or travel, or be on a Forbes billionaire list, whatever it is. Because I truly think anyone can do anything and be anybody they want in life, as long as they're patient and they have a roadmap.
What do you think most entrepreneurs do wrong?
Most entrepreneurs, they make money and they don't reinvest it. They blow it, and then, economy is cyclical. When the business has a, dip, and they've bought all these Ferraris, cars, Lamborghinis, and they didn't reinvest, and they'll, hit a bad spot in financial spot.
So financially, you weren't cashing out, when you started, and we'll get into when you started making good money in real estate, but you didn't start cashing out and buying luxury stuff right away, right? Or
No.
did you kind of? Were you patient with it, or what was your process?
Yeah, my process was with my investment was always reinvest the money. It's like, buying a cow. You don't sell the cow, you sell the milk. And even when you sell the milk, you take part of the profit and invest it in a second cow.
Yeah.
And only with that 30% of it, whatever it may be, you go buy, iPad, iPhone, whatever you have. So my mentality was always reinvest. Don't spend the principal, reinvest the cash flow, And that's how I've amassed all this real estate. And I told myself, I said, hey, I'm gonna buy a Bugatti when I can buy 10 of them cash, But most entrepreneurs, they go ahead and finance it, and they start taking a lot of loans in. And then when the business slows down, it's, overwhelming. And, they start having financial difficulty, and some of them don't survive, But to me, is whatever your trade is, make the money, invest in real estate, and be patient. And every time recessions comes, keep buying.
Yeah. I love that.
Because you make your money on the buy.
Yeah.
Like I said in my first book. That was about, mostly about how I made my money.
Yeah.
$100 million.
Let me ask you this. When you first started in real estate and mortgages, did you have success right away with that? Or where did the ball really start rolling for your real estate, where you went from, seeing how much they were making on their commission checks to going, boom, I want to go all in on this? What happened there with real estate?
Yeah. You could say I got lucky. The first year I opened my mortgage company, I became the primary lender for this auction house. And back in 93, 94, Orange County had a bad recession in housing. So there was a lot of condominium projects that was newly built, they couldn't sell, and the developers were auctioning them. So the company was REDC, and they picked me because they liked my, I was like on it, like I worked 10, 12 hours a week, I wore suits, I was getting loans done, and in a very fast, processing, it's just workaholic,
You
right?
just hustle, yeah.
Yeah,
Did you
hustler.
ever get distracted? Were it girls and drinking or going out? Did you ever, or were you always pretty like focus on the goal?
No, my focus was always make money. Make that money first. Party later, you know?
Yeah.
And so I made close to $300,000 my first year in a mortgage company, mostly from the auction house. And so that was huge. I went and bought a Mercedes and was buying 3-piece suits,
Yeah, living like a millionaire,
That was the first taste of millionaire lifestyle.
Yeah.
I wasn't a millionaire yet, but I was making great money for my age, 21, 22 years old. And then after that, we did that for a couple of years, and then rates start going up, and then the refinance market kind of dampened. And then my partner and I say, hey, why don't we do a discount store? So we went and opened a 79-cent store in Santa Ana.
Not a 99-cent store, 79 cents.
So we were think out of the box. We got to do something even more aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So 79 cents plus, and it was called El Bodegón, which means in a Spanish warehouse.
Yeah.
So we opened that, and we were doing great. We were making 30 grand a month, and we said, okay, why don't we, convert it to supermarket? Because all the Hispanics, they love to eat, and
You
beer.
have the foot traffic, so might as well capitalize on it. Yeah.
So after a year, we made it into a supermarket, and then it was doing fantastic. So we opened the second one, and our idea was, let's do 10 of them and then go public, right? Yeah. At age 22, I was honored to be on a public company.
Yeah.
So obviously, again, destiny, right?
Yeah.
So a big chain opened right next to us in Santa Ana, Food for
Wow.
Less.
Yeah.
As soon as they had their grand opening, our sales dived 50%. So we're like, fuck.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do? You can't compete with a big elephant, right?
Right.
So after 2 years, we went from making $30,000 a month to losing $10,000 a month. And my partner says, it's like I was working 7 days a week. That was tough. And then my friends and family all said, hey, why don't you just file bankruptcy and close it? Because I had a long-term lease. And I said, no, bankruptcy is not an option. It's like throwing in the towel, right? And I knew by then this country is built on credit because I own a mortgage company. I see everybody's credit report.
Right.
I see how that affected their approval. So I realized credit is king, right? And in this country. And so I said, I don't care what. I'll die before I file bankruptcy. So I bought out my partner for a very minimal amount of money because he was losing money. And then I called my parents. My dad used to live in Oregon at the time. He had a job in Oregon. And he just got laid off. So they moved in with me. And I laid off 80 employees. I brought my parents in, my brother, and we revamped it, reduced the cost to be able to make a positive cash flow. And then I decided the only way out is to sell it, right? Because Food for Less is next to me. I can't compete with them forever. Right?
Yeah. There's no way out of that long term. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hired a Korean broker and an Indian broker, and I told both of them I pay you full commission to both because it's two different demographics, right?
Right.
Because a lot of those, nationalities, they come in here with cash. They want to own their own business.
Right. Yeah.
So then I start advertising full page ads in La Opinion, which is a big newspaper for Hispanics in Santa Ana. And I would bring in like truckloads of watermelon from Mexico, and then just sell it for like 10 cents a pound, half the price of what Food for Less was selling,
Yeah.
to kind of bring in the foot traffic as a teaser item.
Yeah.
So
and then
I
they
almost
upsell them
doubled
on other items.
Yeah, so I almost doubled the sales, but it still wasn't making much money.
Yeah,
but it
profitable.
looked great. I had 6 cash registers. It was packed. People were buying. And then so I sold it for $285,000 after a year and a half. It took me 1.5 years though.
Yeah. Wow.
I remember I used to work 7 days a week, 12, 13 hours a day. I used to close the register, take the money, and then go stop by 24-hour fitness. I wasn't even going home. I stopped by the gym, throw the money in the safe, and then go to the gym and work out, run on the treadmill. I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna sell it.
And during those tough times, what was the motivation that kept you going? Was it the image of the palm trees? Was it the vision that you never let shake? I mean, what was it that kept you going when most people would just throw in the towel?
To me, the funny part is was the challenge because I really knew I could get out of it.
Yeah.
So when somebody like keeps doubting you, they said, "Oh, file bankruptcy, you're crazy. How are you gonna compete with Food for Less? It's a big chain." To me that was like hey, don't doubt me. I'm gonna,
Like a
I
chip
can
on
do
your
it.
shoulder. I'm gonna prove you. I'll show you. Yeah.
So sometimes those negativity actually gives you a lift.
I love that.
And so that was great. So after a year and a half, I sold it. $285,000. I owed like $140,000 or $180,000 on my credit cards. I was paying $4,000 a month interest.
Yeah.
I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. I had sold my house, my cars. I had a 500 sale. I had a Lexus LS400. Back then was a big deal.
Yeah, of course.
I had like $200,000-$300,000 in cars. I had to sell all those to keep up with the payments. And so after a year and a half, I lost everything. I was negative net worth until I sold the supermarket. Then I took that money. It was October of December 1998 is when I sold it. And I opened an E-Trade account because I saw all my friends are making hundreds of thousands of dollars trading stocks, day trading, right?
Yeah.
It was the dot-com era.
Boom. Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah.
So I put that money in there. I didn't pay my credit cards. I just paid all the vendors on the supermarket. And then what I had left was 180 grand. I put it in E-Trade, and I tripled it by September 1999.
Wow.
And then all my friends were saying, "That's it. You're gonna be multimillionaires." I have some friends that made $2 million in AOL. Remember America Online?
Yeah.
And they all says, "What are you doing?" I told them I'm gonna take it out. They're like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "Look, this is a lot of money. This is the most money I've ever seen, and I want to invest it in real estate." And during this whole time, my landlord was an older Jewish guy for my supermarket, and he really, liked me. He said, "You remind me of me when I came to Orange County at age 14. I did a lemonade stand, and now he's a huge landlord, right?" So he always told me, "Because what are you doing here? You're the best tenant I have. You always pay on time, but you can do so much more.
You're
why
much bigger, yeah.
Why you basically slaving away, fighting with Food for Less?"
Yeah. Why are you settling? Yeah.
Yeah. I said, "Well, I put it for sale, He goes, "When you sell it, come see me." So I'm like, okay, I got 100, if I pay my credit cards off and the vendors, I'm left with nothing. So I'd rather take that money and do what my friends are doing. They're all making money. So I bought E-Trade, CMGI, Brocade, AOL, and these companies back then, they were, every earning announcement, they were doing 3-for-1 a split, stock a split.
Yeah.
So that happened. I got lucky. By September, I had, tripled my money. I left 80 grand in there. I'm like, I'm just gonna have 80,000 in there. I took the money out. I went and saw Mr. Williams, my landlord. And he put me in touch with his top broker, and he brought 2 shopping centers to me, and I ended up buying one of them in Whittier. I put $200,000 cash down and bought that property, and I bought 2 other REO homes in Orange County. So I started with 3 properties from the money I made in the stock market. So I went from people telling me file bankruptcy, now I own a shopping center and 2 homes.
Which shows the power of, like, if you don't give up, for people listening, if you don't give up, it's one little play that you couldn't see, but if you keep going, boom, that little door opens up and changes the whole game, which then lays the foundation for everything you've built, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, it's my motto is never give up, because it's just not a possibility. You know, for me, I'd rather die, than give up. That's how badly you have to want it, if you want to succeed. So from then on, it was the rest was history. I realized, hey, I buy REO homes. I do some light landscaping, carpet paint, remodel the kitchen, and I made $100,000. I'm like, wow, this is too easy. So I started buying more homes, and I bought apartments. I used the cash to my advantage, and I used to write offers on properties that had multiple price reduction. I realized the seller's desperate. I would, lowball them. Out of 10 deals, one response was, hey, they countered me close enough, where it was still a substantial reduction. So I bought it, but always quick escrow, 5-day escrow, 7-day escrow.
Just to get the deal over
just
with
clear
quick,
title, That was my contingency. And I bought them, I started having great success with that, and I grew that money to $10 million in 3 years.
How old are you at this time?
This is 2004, 2005. So I was, how old was I? I don't know, 33, 34. I made my first million when I was 29.
29, yeah.
Yeah, year 2000. Yeah.
And then, first of all, how excited were you when you made the first million?
Amazing. Like, I keep going to ATM, check the balance, I was like...
like, oh my God, $1 million, yeah.
But, now, like, money is like, doesn't even exist for me, because...
It's just a number, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't go to sleep on my money. It's in assets, I mean, even if you got 100, 300, 400 billion dollars, you don't get to sit. It's all parked in properties, assets, mutual funds, and wherever you decide to park your money, right?
Yeah.
So unlike some other, athletes, they like to stack it up,
Yeah. No, I get it. And a lot of those athletes have cars like this too that they stack it up in.
There you go. Yeah.
So 33, you take it to 10 million. Yeah. And then from there, the hunger intensifies. You don't get comfortable. You push for more, correct?
Oh, yeah. That's just the beginning. It's like getting the taste of success is addicting,
I love that.
And you got that. And I'm like, okay, California's kind of topped out. There's the prices have gone up. This is 2004. I started looking online to see what real estate markets where there is better return. I found Houston and Arizona. So Arizona was closer. It's right here. So I drove, me and my wife, ex-wife, we were in Palm Springs, for a weekend getaway. And I'm like, okay, I'm halfway there. I called, on the listing that I had brought with me, I printed. I called, I said, hey, I want to come look at this office building in Arizona. And the broker said, okay, I can meet you. Just call me when you're going to get here. So I told my ex-wife, like, why don't you hit this spot? I'm going to go look at this building. So I drove all the way in a rental car. I went all the way to Arizona, looked at the property, wrote the offer there, and came back. And by the time I came back, the guy had called me and left me a counter. I ended up buying that property the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, I paid 1.3 million. Again, 10-day escrow, all cash.
Yeah.
And then I sold it 6 months later for 1.8 million.
Beautiful. So you made $500,000.
Yeah, they wanted 1.7 million, 1.8 million. So I got $500,000 off. There was a dispute between 3 partners.
Yeah.
2 partners wanted out. It was a negative cash flow. They didn't want to dump any more money.
Yeah.
They had a big loan on it. So, there's opportunities everywhere. You just got to look for it, right?
Take the initiative, yeah.
Exactly.
Even if it means sending your wife to the spa.
There you go. Yeah. So I did that, and then I realized, wow, Arizona is much better, a lot more opportunity, because there's less, people going after properties in Arizona. Everybody loves California, and I'm like, okay. So I started looking for more properties. I ended up buying 5 med-rise office medical buildings in there in a year, and then I sold those, and by then I had made $20 million. And then I went to Houston, and I started buying in Houston, and then by 2007 I had, close to 2.2 million square feet just in Houston. And then I sold that in 2007. I had $130 million real estate portfolio.
Wow.
And so one of my secret to success has also been timing.
Yeah.
And I don't get greedy. So, and I know market's cyclical, and a lot of people get their emotions involved in investing.
Yeah.
So when it's going down, they don't want to sell it. because they think, they don't want to lose money.
It's a sinking ship or something.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing it like a cycle. of the
Exactly.
market,
And then they wait until they really have to foreclose and sell it. They lose everything. And then when it's going up, they get greedy. They're like, no, it's going to go higher.
Yeah, like Bitcoin, what happened with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. How big is your real estate portfolio now? Like how many millions of dollars in real estate negotiations have you been involved with, estimated to date in your entire real estate?
Like all the transactions I've done, I would say probably 700-800 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, right. Again, timing is everything in real estate.
Yeah.
So I have sold, most of my real estate assets, not most, about half of it, and in the past, 18 months. And, I'll be invested in some of these cars because I think they're better bet than real estate because real estate's kind of ballooned. Most asset classes are ballooned. So, I double down always in recessions. So I'm raised quite a bit of cash and I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop, which it will.
Which is interesting because Tony Robbins actually talks about, they say that more millionaires and billionaires build their wealth in times of recession than any other time.
Yeah.
Because that's where most people run. They say where people are running, that's where the most money is made.
Yeah.
You walk to where people are running.
Exactly.
Wherever they're running away from, you run towards it.
Yeah, you gotta be a contrarian.
Yeah,
And that's why
contrarian.
my book title is my first book.
Contrarian playbook. I love it.
And yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. A lot of people wrote in about this interview and they said they wanted to know what are Manny's top 3 tips when it comes to negotiation? Obviously, being in, over $800 million worth of real estate negotiations, you learn some tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
So what are, 1 or 2 or 3 of your best tips when it comes to being an effective communicator and negotiator in business?
Well, most importantly, you gotta give to get. So first you see what's important to the seller or other party, right? So if they're in a rush and there's a dispute, there's a divorce, so closing, term of the closing is very, important. Then you just shrink your term. Instead of a 3-month escrow on a big building, you can close in 15 days. And sometimes, and I've done that many times, where I went and got a bridge loan instead of getting a traditional loan. It cost me a couple of points, but I got $3 million off, on the property. So maybe I spent $200,000 in the loan fees extra. I got a bridge loan, which is a sometimes private loan, but that was a huge value to the seller because they wanted to close sooner. So always find out what's critical for the other party. So give that to them and get something in return. So it's give and get, Number 2, do your research. When you're doing it, if you got comps, you're buying a property, do your research. A lot of brokers are lazy. I hate to say it,
Even at big price points?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are there ever times where you look at a real estate portfolio that's maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 million bucks and you're like, how are they this off on a property this way? And then find an opportunity in that? Does that happen a lot?
Yeah. I just bought a building 6 months ago in Huntington Beach for $10 million. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm looking on LoopNet and I'm like, this is priced so low. There's got to be some kind of environmental soil condition, something, right?
Something, yeah.
So I call the broker. I'm like, okay, what's the hair on this deal? Because there's no hair. I'm like, okay, clear title. Is there any structural damage, any soil condition, contamination? He's like, no. The fund bought it and they were going to redevelop it. And then they realized, it's not panning out. They let go of a lot of the tenants because they were going to tear it down. So the occupancy is down, but now the partners want out. So that's a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
Grossly mismanaged, location's great, and there's a lot of meat on the bone. So I bought that for under $200 a foot, and within 2 months, I'm selling it for $1.7 million more.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's
And
almost
so you gotta find that value. There's value.
opportunities.
Yeah.
I love that. Now let me ask you this. A lot of people might look at your success and think like, yeah, maybe Manny could do it, but it's not possible for me, right? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people, you probably get a lot of messages all the time. But for somebody at home watching this, or maybe somebody listening to the podcast inspired by your story, what would be your best advice to them when it comes to feeling like, man, like I have these dreams, but I don't know how it's gonna happen? You talked earlier in the interview about, it's more important to know what than how. Can you just shed some light as to like, what's the ratio of knowing what you want versus actually having to know how in advance? Does that make sense? So like, what light could you shed on that?
Yeah, well, of course, when I started, selling junk from, dumpsters in the swap meet, I didn't know I'm going to own all these cars on real estate. Yeah. I didn't even know I'm going to end up being a real estate investor, Don't worry about, 5-10 years from now. Worry about how can you improve today, improve yourself, mentally, physically, with people around you, and even your job. Always be lookout, on a better opportunity, and then eventually you'll get there. If you're striving for a higher ground, you're gonna get there, but you don't have to worry about how you're gonna get on all to the top of the mountain right now. Just do baby steps, as stepping stones.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. Don't have that anxiety. A lot of people are trying to figure the whole thing out right now, today.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake. Just know that it's going to take time, and if you put your best foot forward, and you have your subconscious going to do the rest.
I love that. Now, being on this side of the fence, was it easier than you thought, harder than you thought? What are some insights that, being on this side of the fence, the 14-year-old you would have wished you knew about how to get here?
You mean if it was easier than I thought?
Yeah.
You mean? No, it was much harder than I thought.
Yeah.
Because the guy that screwed me on the loan for gas station, it took all my money.
Right.
At age 19, 20, I'm basically bankrupt. And then again, with Food for Less open next to me, I was bankrupt. For 18 months, I was bouncing checks. And, I used to go to Wells Fargo before 4 p.m. to take whatever from cash registers to put in so I don't get overdrawn. And then I used to go 9 a.m. at Wells Fargo to cover the overdrawn because I was overdrawn. To make sure they bounce the least amount of checks.
Yeah.
So that was a constant vicious cycle I did for 18 months. Most people would say, fuck, they would give up, right?
Yeah, no,
Just file
absolutely.
bankruptcy. They're like, what's the point? You're not gonna win.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
But you'll find a way.
Now, let me ask you this. What's the best piece of advice you got on your way up?
Invest in real estate.
What's the worst piece of advice you got?
Worst piece. Don't drink and drive.
Yeah.
It's fun to celebrate your success, go out with your friends, party, do ball service, all that stuff is all it's gonna do is slow you down. At first it's fun, but drinking excessive alcohol, drugs, I don't do drugs, but I used to, party with my friends, go out, do ball service. Most people did when they made a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
You're young, dumb, and you know what?
Yeah.
So I would say, just focus on the bigger picture as you're climbing the mountain, and invest in real estate. And ignore the noise. There's always noise around you, always. Whether it's your own siblings or your friends, there's always people doubting you. You know why? Because that's their mentality. They think that you can't do it, and you call them haters, call them whatever you want.
Yeah.
I call them doubters, but doubters never discourage me. They actually encourage me because I love showing them how it's done.
No, I love it. Now, let me ask you this. Before we wrap up here, just two more questions, then we play a little game.
All right.
But I wanted to ask, for the people out there that maybe are stuck in a rut, or maybe they're in the challenging times that you once were, aside from never giving up, what insight could you give to them about maybe a time in your life where things were especially tough? Maybe something you haven't shared before. What are some, a lot of people might see you here in the back cave feeling like, man, he probably doesn't have that many insecurities, or he's conquered them all. What are some insecurities to date that you still deal with, or some challenges day to day that you still deal with, or maybe something that you've dealt with that maybe you haven't shared before that's been challenging? And the reason I ask is just to share the human side of you to people out there who might want to hear that and be like, oh shit, man, he's just like me. Maybe if he's still dealing with it, maybe I can conquer mine too.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I'm a shy person in general. This is my first podcast I've done in my life.
I love it. What do you think of it so far?
It's great. But, I had a little bit of anxiety, nervousness. You do, because you're on camera and you don't know, you know, if, you got booger in your nose, or your shoes, you got gum on your shoes.
Totally, yeah.
But what I say, crush your fears. Whatever your fears are, as you face them and you overcome them, of course, anyone that does anything for the first time, it's a little scary, whether he's doing skydiving or, jumping in the ocean for the first time, if you got fear of sharks,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but it's amazing the feeling you get afterwards, I know for a fact I'm gonna go to lunch and have an amazing feeling after, doing this podcast.
I love that.
It's a great experience. So, you look at them as experiences, not as, something terrible, like, scary, And so I would say, that's probably, one of the key factors to improving yourself is facing your fears.
I love that. And let me ask you this. What's something you would have done different on the way up?
Well, not marry my first wife.
And then which,
I would invest in real estate more than I did
like
now.
sooner and more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, that's interesting. Can you want to share the story that your wife is actually, which you always talk about on social media as the love of your life,
Yeah.
was actually on Deal or No Deal, right?
Yes.
She was
Briefcase model number 13. Yeah.
I love that. So did you actually see her out, or did you see her on TV first? Or?
Oh, of course I saw her on TV. She was the only Persian girl on on that show, and
You added her to the picture of the mansion with the palm trees, right?
No, she wasn't on that. That I drew long ago, but but yeah, I knew of her and I've seen her at some events. And at that time, I was in a relationship. But I always told myself, hey, when I get out of this relationship, because I knew I'm not going to marry my then girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I'm going to link up with her, and 2 years later, sure enough, I was single. So I reached out to her on Facebook, and she responded. And 2 weeks later, we went on dinner.
I love it. And now you guys have a beautiful family and kids.
Yes,
and
I
all
got
that.
2 kids, 2 beautiful kids. I have a 2.5-year-old son named Enzo and 6.5-year-old daughter, Priscilla.
Beautiful. Very cool, my man.
Kids are the biggest blessings.
I love that.
Yeah.
So last question before we play our game here. For people who've been inspired by your story, they love the fact that, you're just an average dude, made of the same skin and bones, the same mindset, the same resources available. Probably even other people watching this have more resources available than when you came, were living in a Datsun in a parking lot, built this huge multi-million-dollar real estate empire, inspiring millions of people online with social media. And I know I asked the question, various versions of it, but I want to ask you, what would be your best piece of advice to somebody out there that's watching this and they want to take their life to the next level and maybe want to find a vehicle? Because a lot of people, they might have the motivation, but they don't have the vehicle.
Yeah.
What would Manny Khoshbin's best piece of advice be to that somebody looking for answers?
I would say write your short-term goals and long-term goals. Again, if you're working at Kmart and you want to be a multimillionaire, you have to look at the next stepping stone, right? You're not going to jump out and say, okay, now I want to go raise money and open a real estate fund and make 10 million bucks next year. It's not going to happen because you got to build your credibility. You got to build your team. You got to build the people around you. People are not going to come just write a check because you're motivated. You got to have experience. You got to have track record, right? And so I would say write your short-term goals, how you can improve your current state, for the next year. This year, what are you going to do? And if it's taking, night school to get a degree to be able to earn more money, then do that. And then once you earn more money, then maybe you can buy a second home as an income property when recession hits, So slowly, and then in 10 years, you realize, wow, you got 4 or 5 income properties, you're a multimillionaire. It took 10 years, but you made it because you took those baby steps,
I love that. Very powerful. Now, in rapping, we have a game called First Things First.
Okay.
It's called First Things First, and how it works is basically I rifle off a word or phrase, and you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I'm going to say 10 words, one at a time, and then you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. Make sense?
Let's do it.
The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. So number one.
Does it have to be one word? Or I can give multiple
It can be a
words?
word or a phrase.
You got it.
So it's up to you. The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
You got it.
Okay. Number one, your wife and kids.
My dream.
Number two, your $35 million house.
Great investment.
Your childhood.
Not so good.
Passion.
Passion. Exotic cars.
Your legacy.
My fans.
The tough times.
Experience.
Your story.
My legacy. I can repeat you though, right?
Money.
Comfort.
Mentors.
Mentors. Idol.
Love it. And then the last one, you ready? Manny's future.
Limitless.
Limitless? I love that. Thank you so much for bringing your limitless
Hey,
mindset
my
to
pleasure.
the show, Manny. Thank you guys for enjoying this episode. And make sure to check out Manny and all the cool stuff he's up to in the description below. And until next time, stay inspired, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for being one of the passionate few.
If you guys enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you the very best in personal development content, interviews, and insights to help inspire you to take your life and your dreams and make them a reality. And also, if you want to know how to book dream guests the same way I have, you can check the link below for my top 3 secrets. So if you have a podcast or a show or whatever it is and you want to collaborate with them, if you click that link below, I'll give you those top 3 secrets to help you get in touch with anybody. And also, don't forget that The Passionate Few is available on media platforms as well. So you can subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, thank you for being one of the passionate few.